And here comes the public.
Okie doke. It's been a pleasure, everybody.
Do we have mood music tonight? Some background? No?
We did there for a few minutes.
It sounded like it. Okay, Matthew, is everybody in?
Yes, everyone is in, so you are good to start.
Okay, we are going to begin the planning board meeting. The time of the tone is 5:35. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here to the April 21st planning board meeting. We will start off with roll call and approval of last month's minutes. So I'll go ahead and go through the roll, just say that you are here. Brian.
Here.
Shannon.
Present.
Tori.
Here.
Taya.
Here.
Melissa.
Here.
Stacy.
Here.
And I am also present, as is Matthew Menard, Deputy City Planner. How about an approval of last meeting's minutes?
This is Brian. I'll make a motion to approve.
Brian,
Well, second.
Shannon, any discussion? Okay, let's vote on the approval of the minutes. Brian,
4.
Shannon,
4.
Tori,
4.
Taya,
4.
Melissa,
4.
Stacy.
4.
Okay, and I am also 4, so we have approved last meeting's minutes. Okay, we're going to open it up to general public comment. This evening, just as a reminder, if you haven't seen the agenda, the board did vote on 4 policy review discussions for this evening at our last meeting on the 7th. So if you have a comment on either of those agenda items, please hold them. And you'll also see at the back, at the end, we'll be making our recommendation on the growth policy to the City Commission. Again, if you have comments on that agenda, try to hold those until then as well. So these are just general public comments that the planning board has jurisdiction over. We will give you 3 minutes to comment. I'll hold my phone up when we're getting close to the end. For the meeting minutes, could you please remember to state your full name and your physical address before speaking? And if you would like to go ahead and make public comment, general public comment, go ahead and raise your hand. And we will start, yes, with Mr. Frank Schroeder. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Frank Schroeder, Chair of Friends of Park County, and I live at 477 Mill Creek Road. And Madam Chair, if I could ask an indulgence, and that would be to have Ken Cochran testify immediately after me, because what we have to say individually would extend beyond your 3-minute limit. So that would be appreciated if possible. So thank you. Last Thursday, near the end of the Park County Planning Board meeting, County Planning Director Mike Inman stated, and I quote, "The developers have discovered Park County has no zoning," close quotes. And he then mentioned several potential rural development proposals that he heard were in the works. One of them was a possible development of the 1,900-acre Hart K Ranch, which straddles the city limits on the northeast and borders the Yellowstone River. If this is accurate, what will this mean for Livingston? Well, the answer is very different depending on whether or when your recommended future land use map designations are implemented as revised zoning. The future land use map in the draft growth policy in your packet shows all of the Hart K Ranch property as either park and open or very low density residential. The city's current zoning shows 307 acres of the Hart K Ranch inside the city limits and closest to downtown as zoned R1, which is low density residential. Another roughly 200 acres at the edge of the city limits is zoned R3, high-density residential, which would allow for compact traditional neighborhood development. But this includes riparian areas next to the Yellowstone River, which you designate as future park and open space. Finally, there's an area of about 10 acres near the northeast city limits zone Central Business District. Quote, the CBD classification is intended primarily to accommodate stores, hotels, government and cultural centers, professional offices, service establishment, and high-rise apartments. This zoning would allow new investment to be diverted away from downtown to the edge of the city. The point is that what you have recommended as future land uses in the northeastern part of the city are seriously inconsistent with current zoning. If you share our concern about the potential for a major new development that sharply conflicts with your proposed updated growth policy, then please consider asking the City Commission to greatly accelerate the zone changes and other implementing strategies in the draft growth policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Cochran, would you like to go next?
Okay, I've been unmuted. Thank you. Good evening. I'm Ken Cochran, a co-founder of Friends of Park County. My address is 60 Majestic Ridge Trail, Livingston. The Hart K Ranch includes about 1,400 acres outside the city limits. I'm not sure how much of that is in the ETJ, but our calculation tells us it might be about 1,000 acres, with the remaining 400 or so beyond the ETJ. The 1,400 acres is enough for 350 5-acre ranchettes on well and septic systems on land next to the Yellowstone River. The total could be lower depending on how much is in the floodplain. On the other hand, given the absence of any county zoning, the developer could propose higher densities of development, 1 or 2 acre home sites, for example, assuming an argument could be made, whether or not true, that the ground capacity is adequate for that number of septic systems. That kind of determination must have been made for the septic disposal system in the Green Acre subdivision when it was approved outside the city limits. And you will recall what followed: a $2.26 million taxpayer bill to prevent pollution of the aquifer in the Yellowstone River. In a few years, the northeastern edge of Livingston could be transformed into the first wedge of a ring of low-density rural sprawl. Planning board members, what Friends of Park County have been warning about may have begun. The same flooded development that has overwhelmed other counties in the greater Yellowstone region. We urge you to include in your recommendations to the City Commission the need to take immediate action in concert with Park County to translate the wonderful but purely advisory future land use map and the goals and objectives of the draft growth policy for the ETJ that we all here tonight have worked together on over the last 6 months into the reality of new and revised land use regulations, having the force of law and clear policies governing the provision of city facilities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Kale, Carrie Kale. I see your hand up.
Thank you. Carrie Kale, 702 East Lewis Street here in Livingston. I have a question more than anything, so wondering if maybe we can get this answered at some point along the way this evening. Just wondering when we as the public will get to see the actual sort of clean copy of the growth policy, so that we'll be able to review that as well. So just wondering when that might come out, if that'll come out after your recommendation, or how that will work. And then also wondering if there is any explanation about what the process at the county commission will look like. Will that be just something, will it just go before the county commission and they will make a recommendation? Will they open it up for public comment, and what their process might look like if we do know that? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Matthew, do you want to answer that real quick? The growth policy was attached to the memo, correct?
Both the red line and the clean copy of the growth policy were included in the staff memo today. The clean copy, the latest version of the clean copy is also available on the Livingston Growth Policy site that's being hosted by Burton. So it's available there as well. So it's widely available to the public at this point. There will be a few changes as we move to the commission, obviously, as you make recommendations tonight. In terms of the county commission will not see this item. The city commission will see this item twice. There is no requirement, nor will we be pursuing any sort of approval from the county.
Okay, thank you. And
Can I say something to it?
oh, sure thing.
Before the city commission votes on anything, it has to be open to public comment. That's part of the law. So there will be a chance for public comment before the vote.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. Okay, I don't see any other hands up. Does anybody else want to make any public comment at this time? And this is the second call. Matthew, are you seeing anybody? Okay. One last time, and if you can't raise your hand, feel free to unmute. Okay, we're going to close public comment. Thank you all very much. We appreciate all public comment, both here at the meetings and written. So we really appreciate your time and efforts in helping us with the policy. Okay.
Hey, Jess,
Yeah.
is it possible? I'd rather do it now, I guess, than in planning board member comments to address some of the things that were brought up in public comment, just to clarify it for the record. Is that possible about some of the public comment? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that we just heard. Yeah.
Yeah, so some of the property that was mentioned with the Heart K Ranch is already, if I remember the zoning map correctly, and I don't have a perfect memory, but some of it's already in the city and annexed and zoned. Not all of it is in the county. And I think years ago, before I was a commissioner, there was some sort of subdivision approval process. So there was a plan, if memory serves me correctly, and I don't know what the expiration date was for that plan, but one of these staff members might remember. And I wonder if maybe we could just like pull up the map real quick of the city limits and what's been zoned. Because there's also requirements with how close things are to existing lines and if they tie in or not. So there's some like requirements for infrastructure that are beyond the lines of the city, if I'm remembering correctly. And Shannon knows probably all those things, or at least a lot of them.
This is the current zoning of the area that we're discussing. Part of it is zone R3, as mentioned. There's a small piece of central business district, and then the majority is zoned R1. That is the portion in the city. There is a requirement if you're within 500 feet of city limits that you hook up to city services. There are some exemptions to that from DEQ, and you can always receive a variance from DEQ. So there's nothing certain with that requirement. There is an approved preliminary plat that was approved in 2007 for a 15-year period and likely expires fall of next year. There's some ambiguity with that because there was a signed agreement with a developer. So it's sort of a discussion that the city's been having internally, but it looks like it expires fall of next year.
Thanks, Matthew. I appreciate you taking time to share that with the public, because I think that's all on public record, since it would have gone through a subdivision review process, but it's a while back and we have different people here now. So thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Melissa, for prompting that, and Matthew for pulling it up. Let's go ahead and hop into the agenda. Matthew, do you want to kick us off with any comments on the packet or the memo that you sent out? And thanks again for putting all that together.
Sure. Just a couple of quick things, and I'll sort of cover everything in the memo rather than doing it one at a time. You all did vote to revisit specific items. I just want to make sure that we stick very closely to those items that you voted on. For this section of the agenda, when we get to the recommendation section, that does open the entire document up for motions to change items or make recommendations to change items that will be recommended to the City Commission. So we can cover other items in the last agenda item if you all would like to do that. But just for these items, since they were voted on, they need to be very narrowly tailored to what's in the agenda, and that goes for public comment as well. There are a few changes I do want to cover that we didn't vote on at the last meeting. The library section has been updated at this point, so thanks to the library for really helping out with that. That was from a couple meetings ago. We looked at the FCC data again, and there are a lot of small LLC satellite providers, and it varies greatly by property. So the list of broadband providers has been removed in Chapter 9, and we have updated with the latest speeds and the types of internet rather than a specific list of providers, just because it wasn't ever going to be accurate based on just the diversity of providers within the city. And the other change, if you remember, and it was a while ago at this point, in November, we asked the boards and commissions of the city to make comment on the growth policy and provide those to you. All of those comments have been included in Appendix B, just to make sure that if we ever do move forward with anything, something like zoning, those comments that they made on the growth policy can be revisited when we do those items. So I think that's all I have for the changes. I do continue to proofread the document. It's a lot easier now that I have a clean copy. I'm almost done with my first run through of that. And I'll go back and look at numbering and try to get all the 2020s out of there and all of that. I will make suggested changes to the City Commission for proofreading. Because of the short turnaround, I have not been able to get that done at this point. And finally, I just want to thank you all for how much time you spent on this. My conservative estimate is about 50 hours of meetings. That doesn't include the hours you've spent reading public comment. It's very clear to me that you all read all of the public comment because you're basically citing it directly when we have these discussions, which is very impressive. And I thank you all for that. And I know how much pressure it is to sit in front of the camera here for 4.5 hours and have to make these huge decisions that really do affect the future of the city. So I am extremely grateful for all the time you all have spent on this. And that is all I have. I am happy to move forward with the first agenda item.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Thank you, planning board. Thank you, public. Let's get this agenda underway, shall we? Okay, so the first area for growth policy review that we will take public comment on is Chapter 1, the Livingston Area History section. So thanks for including this section in the memo, Matthew. We'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Please remember that you have 3 minutes and state your name and address before your comment. And if you have one, go ahead and raise your hand. Second call for public comment. And you can always turn your camera on and wave. Last call for public comment. Okay, public comment is closed, thanks. Okay, planning board. Do you want to discuss or have any questions or comments about Chapter 1 Livingston Area History section?
I do.
Okay.
All right. And I think it's pretty succinct. So I am going to just put it in the form of a motion and then we can have discussion just to move things along. So I'd like to move that in the introduction, anywhere in the introduction, that we use the Native American names instead of the English names for the tribes that are quoted.
Okay, do we have a second?
Can you restate it one more time, please, Stacy?
Sure. That in the introduction, the Native American names be used instead in conjunction with the English names. For instance, Crow, Sioux, Shoshone, and just put in the Native American name beside that.
I'll second that.
Okay, board discussion. Okay, let's go ahead and vote on that. Brian,
4.
Shannon,
4.
Tori,
4.
Taya,
4.
Melissa,
4.
Stacy,
4.
and I'm also 4, so that motion passes. And I know Stacy, oh, I'm sorry, Stacy, go ahead. Do you have another one?
I do. For
Oh,
that
go
same,
ahead.
so for that same, in that same section, the second to the last sentence of the introduction, where it says, and supports a diverse economy, which includes tourism, the arts, remote employment, conservation, and this is what I'd like to add to it, housing for out-of-county mining, Yellowstone National Park, and other businesses.
Stacy, will you say one more time where that paragraph was?
Sure. So go to the end of the introduction, and
Okay,
it's under Livingston history.
yep.
Okay, and then go to the last paragraph, and there's 2 sentences in the last paragraph. So it is in this first sentence.
And while she's looking, why did I think we already made this change at one time?
We made the change in the actual section, but this is just in the introduction.
Oh, okay. All right.
So that was all. We've
Okay.
done this. It just matches what we already did. And so we cleaned it up. So has everybody found the place in the document?
I think so. You're trying to kind of replace the word remote employment or not?
No, remote
Oh.
employment stays.
Okay,
So this is just including or adding the housing for out-of-county miners, mining, Yellowstone National Park, and other businesses, which includes if you happen to live in Livingston, but you work in Bozeman, you work in Lewistown, it doesn't matter where, you're just out of the county.
okay, got it. Thank you. Does anybody want to second that? That was a motion, correct, Stacy?
Yes.
Would anybody like to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any more discussion on that?
I have a question.
Sure thing.
So Stacy, I'm just trying to understand this addition. Do you have like information that this is a significant part of our local economy?
Yes, at the time, I had found that there are, I believe, 250 families that work for the Stillwater mine, for instance, and live in Livingston. And that's a significant population number. So it's a hidden economy that we don't typically think about. I have no numbers for how many people live here and work in Belgrade, Bozeman, whatever. And then the third category was Yellowstone National Park. And we know that there's a bus that takes workers daily down to the park. So it was just another way in which we could categorize a hidden economic factor for Livingston.
Thank you for that context.
Okay, any other discussion before we vote? Okay, let's
And
go ahead.
Can I just say one more thing?
Mhm.
The reason I thought that it was still important to put it in the introduction is that, we know how massive this document is. Some people may never get past the introduction. Or they might get to the introduction and one other section, but they may never read it anywhere else. So that's why I thought it was worth putting in the introduction.
Okay, thanks, Stacy. Let's go ahead and vote. Brian,
For,
Shannon,
Yes.
Tori,
Four.
Taya,
Four.
Melissa,
4.
Stacy,
Or,
and I'm also 4, so that motion passes. Stacy, do you have another one?
not for the introduction, no.
Okay. Does anybody else want to discuss anything else with the Livingston area history section of the introduction? Okay. Let's check that off the agenda and we'll move on to growth policy review strategy 3.5.4.1. So we'll go ahead and open that up for public comment. For the public, it's in the memo. It's on on page 31 for your reference. We'll open it up to public comment. Please remember you have 3 minutes. State your name and your physical address before making your comment. And if you have one, go ahead and raise your hand. Second call for public comment. Last call, public comment on page 31, 3.5.4.1. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close public comment. Planning board, any questions or motions around that strategy?
I guess I'll make one.
Okay.
I would like to include on that strategy, after the words Livingston Business Improvement District, comma, the Chamber of Commerce. And I'll start with that.
Okay.
I also have a second part of it, but I think I'm just going to do the Chamber of Commerce first.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion? Do you guys understand what she's asking? And is there a second?
I just felt like the Chamber of Commerce has had some of these things come and go, and that they are a part of the community and part of the discussion over the years, and should continue to be part of the discussion and be considered one of the other partners, and that they deserve to be just listed as one of the entities.
I'll second for you, Stacy.
Thank you, Tori.
Any discussion around that, you guys? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Brian,
against,
Shannon,
Four.
Tori,
Four.
Taya,
Four.
Melissa,
4.
Stacy,
Or,
and I'm also 4. Okay, that motion passes. Stacy,
Okay.
do you want to do something else for
well,
that one too?
then when I was reading the rest of that, it says for regulatory barriers. And first I wanted to remove regulatory barriers. One of the public comment that came in suggested instead of regulatory barriers, the words opportunities for infill and redevelopment. And since that was what we have been promoting, I just thought we should have a little discussion on that as an option. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? So instead of saying regulatory barriers, looking for regulatory barriers, you would say opportunities for infill and redevelopment.
So it's almost like changing that from a negative to a positive.
Right, and because it's under that strategy is headed under regulatory investigation.
Is there any reason why we would want to, is there any negative repercussions about taking that out? Any thoughts, Brian?
yeah, I guess I think it's already addressed pretty sufficiently earlier on. I mean, the major goal that this falls under is rehabilitation, rehabilitate brownfields for new development. So I think we need in there, obviously that's going to require regulatory work. And I think if we take out that emphasis on regulatory barriers, we're going to lose that under that section. I think we've captured the infill message plenty of times before that. So I just think for that goal, I think it's important to keep that regulatory identification in there, just because it is going to be a barrier to getting rehabilitation of that area. So I would recommend we do not proceed with that.
And if you do look at the objective above it, it does say people to participate in community revitalization while removing regulatory barriers that disproportionately burden small developers. So that is a strategy underneath that objective.
So
So
what
it's
do you
not-
mean, Stacy?
So I'm just saying that it's not, if it were taken out of that strategy, it's not taking it out of the umbrella of removing regulatory barriers. It's kind of like it's a double, it's stating it twice.
Well, I guess, sorry, I guess the objective and the strategies are kind of different though. I know in a lot of cases, a lot of times the strategies sort of, well, they highlight what's in the objective. So I don't, again, I think it's important to have strategies that we really look at the regulatory side of this, but that's just my opinion.
Go ahead, Melissa.
I think I see what both of you are saying, and I think the ideas are not mutually exclusive. I think brownfields are they're a specific challenge, and I think that there are specific opportunities related to brownfields for redevelopment. Is there a motion on the table?
No, not yet. We're just under discussion.
So I'm just gonna make a motion
Okay.
just to keep it going on time.
Do it. Let's
I'm
do
gonna
it.
make a motion for strategy 3.5.4.1 that we have the one part that's already added. So the ending would be to identify regulatory barriers and opportunities for infill and redevelopment. So it's just an addition.
This is
Mhm.
Brian, I second that.
Perfect. Any discussion on that one? Okay, let's vote. Brian,
4.
Shannon,
Great job, Melissa. 4.
Tori,
4.
Taya,
4.
Melissa,
4.
Stacy,
4.
and I am also 4. Okay, perfect. Anything else on that particular strategy? 3.5.4.1. All right, that agenda item is done. Next up, figure 11.1, the recommended future land use map. Okay, we're going to open this up for public comment. Please state your name and your physical address. You've got 3 minutes, and I'll let you know when you're getting close to 3 minutes. If you have a comment, please go ahead and raise your hand. Second call for public comment. Okay, last call, public comment. Okay, public comment is closed. Planning board. What do we want to do with recommendations for the future land use map? Melissa. Sorry,
Pick
her
me.
hand went up first, or that's who I saw first, sorry.
Pick
No, that's
me,
fine.
pick me.
Go for it.
I'm gonna start with things that I think we already talked about but didn't get changed.
And did we vote on these things?
Yes.
We just, okay, because I
Yes.
don't think we're going to
They were things we voted on, we agreed upon, but they didn't make it into the map.
Oh, okay.
They were like weird north side pockets.
Oh, things that we left out, so almost like wrong edits or something.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you guys remember we had the conversation about all the little weird things on the north side?
Mhm.
But my memory is not perfect because nobody's is, so y'all are gonna have to help me. Okay, so I'm on the blow up side of the map because it's easier to see.
Yep.
Okay, so the first one was Zach's Barbecue right next to the school.
Mhm.
It used to be a grocery store and now it's a restaurant. I think we wanted to preserve whatever kind of zoning we needed to preserve so that if that property changed hands or like anything happened, that they could still make it a compatible use for whatever it is now. Are you following me?
Mhm.
Matthew, are you following me too? Do you see where it is on the map? Okay, I think we talked about that one, didn't we? It's just like part of a block. It's not even a full block. So I think it's easy to miss and I don't know. I don't
That's
remember what the
interesting.
zone would need to be. It's R2 right now, but I don't remember what we talked about, if it needed to be mixed use or if it needed to be
Commercial something. Community commercial.
community commercial. I can't remember.
And it's yellow still, and so the blocks, is that where we're talking, is that where
Yes.
am I looking? Okay,
Yes.
okay,
Right by Winans.
yep,
And
Not
what is
Washington.
that?
Right by Washington.
Yeah,
by
Washington.
Washington.
Thank you, Washington.
So there, and that's the blue, right? The public facility is the blue,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
the
Washington School. So
Mhm.
it's just, so that chunk just north of there.
Yeah, it's just like a tiny little, it's like one, however many lots that is. Do we need to
Oh.
vote on that or can you just
Yeah.
fix it?
I believe we already voted on that, so I
Okay.
will just fix that.
There's one other property that I can't remember. I think we talked about it on the north side, but I'm not 100% sure. There's a Yamaha store. It's like an off-street, like two-wheel dirt bike store. And it's on Main Street
Mhm.
in Chinook. And right now it's in R3 zoning, which I think is the zone for that block right now under our current zoning. So does high density allow that use? Okay, so that would have to be like a total zone change. Okay,
And I remember though, Melissa, you don't mind, we did talk about this that night. So I thought that we had already approved it to be part of the, well, I don't really remember what it was supposed to be, whether it was considered mixed use or
Number.
central business district. I don't remember. Matthew, do you happen to remember?
Not sure we specifically talked about that parcel.
I'm not
Okay.
sure that we talked about that parcel. I remember that 4-block section wanting to retain the high density that it's currently zoned at. So, but we also talked a lot about wanting to retain the current opportunities that already exist on the north side and not lose those pockets that currently exist on the north
Commercial.
side. So I'm not sure I'm not sure what to do about that property. I'm gonna go on mute for a sec.
Does it help to go back through the minutes for that section and see if we discuss that, Matthew? And because that is also yellow, right? So it's orange.
It's actually orange.
Oh, that is the orange. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. It is orange.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
remember talking
I
about
don't either.
this one either.
So I wonder, since we already talked about that 4-block section and voted on it, could we just like at the end, make a motion to make a note of that parcel or something? Like, so it's like a new thing, not an old thing we already voted on, and make a note of that parcel and recommend that the zoning commission or somebody like, I don't know what the best way forward is to also protect that business owner.
Why wouldn't we just go ahead and tag it then as neighborhood commercial right away?
Because we would have to do that at the last agenda item, I think. Wouldn't we, Matthew, or not?
If it's already been voted on, and I can't remember if that block was voted on, I think it was probably like that from the beginning, but I'm not sure. We should wait. We're getting very granular with the future land use map, and I think we're getting more granular than we need to be. just because there's something that's shown as high density residential in a future land use map doesn't mean that necessarily we're going to boot the business. I know the business isn't consistent with current zoning. It's obviously allowed to remain as a non-conforming use under current zoning. But consider the future land use map to be somewhat flexible in that if there's something that's not quite consistent, zoning is not beholden to that map completely. So I would hesitate to go parcel by parcel through the whole city and make changes.
Fair enough. I'm gonna keep going. Next thing. Thank you. I want to make a request. We have not talked about this, to add some key street names to this map that's zoomed in. Like not all the street names, but just enough so that a regular person could like orient themselves to this map.
Can I add that I would like to see them be Main Street, 5th Street, 9th Street, and H. They're the main north, south, and 1 or 2 east-west roads.
Do you need a motion? Okay, Stacy, why don't you just make a motion then?
Okay.
If Matthew needs a motion.
Okay, I move that we add the street names to the 11.2 map. East-west or South 9th Street, South 5th Street, H, and Main, as well as Geyser and Lewis across.
Second.
Any discussion around that one?
What about Park Street?
Pardon me?
Park Street?
Is that an amendment? Are you amending the motion?
All right.
Well,
I can add Park Street.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Okay. 5th, 9th, H, Geyser, Lewis Park. Brian,
A
Oh,
second.
yeah, we missed that. We had a first and then we needed, I don't remember who seconded it, but it
I
changed.
did.
Melissa
And the
did.
second
second
agree
it.
to the change. If
Yes.
they're okay with that. Okay.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All right, let's vote. Brian,
4.
Shannon,
4.
Tori,
or
Taya,
4.
Melissa,
4.
Stacy,
Or
and I am 4. Okay, motion passes. Melissa, do you have more?
I have another thing, but I think I have to bring it up later. I don't think I can bring it up now if it's something that we already talked about, right?
If it's
It has to
something
do with
we
the
already
central business
voted
district.
on,
I'm sorry, I can't understand when
Sorry.
more than one person's talking.
I'm sorry. My understanding is if it is something that the planning board has voted on and passed, then we're not bringing it up now. If there's something we want to, if it's something you want to revisit in a recommendation to the commission, then we would revisit it in the last agenda.
Thank you. I'll wait then.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. Who else has something for this section? Oh, Taya does. Go for it.
Thanks, Chair. I was reflecting on this map now that we've gone through the whole process and thinking about the themes of prioritizing infill, limiting low density housing within city limits, preserving the river, trails and parks. And so when I look back at this map, the area, which I think is called the Yellowstone Preserve, it's a significantly large area that we've designated as low density housing. That I do have some concerns about. So I'd like to get the board's thoughts on potentially changing that to open space, or at least adding a buffer of open space and sizing down that low density housing space.
Which where on the map? I don't know where the Yellowstone.
Yeah, so
Preserve
it's
is.
east of the river, east and south of the river, across kind of that area across from the mixed use in the hospital.
Oh, okay.
The heart-
Between the 89 and, or between, I think I see where you mean.
Yeah, it's between the business, or yeah, I-90 business and the river.
can I ask a question? Is that the precursor to the Hart K Ranch, or is it exactly the same as the Hart K Ranch?
It is the Hart K, although it's been annexed into the city.
Okay, so that's why it's called the Yellowstone Preserve?
Mhm.
Is it possible we could pull that up? And is it the little green, is it south of I-90 or north of I-90? Sorry.
North of I-90.
Oh,
So it's
north of
basically the I-90 business road between the I-90, north of the I-90 business road and the river, south of the river.
Can somebody screen share, please?
Okay. So are you thinking this, we looked at this earlier, right? What part is actually in the city? Oh, you're circling it. Is that entire part in the city?
I think just the
Oh.
shaded, kind of tan shaded area is the part that is within the city.
Oh, or is Matthew drawing lines of where it is in the city? Okay,
That's the cutoff of the city limit.
okay.
So it's a fairly large area that would contradict our themes of limiting
There you go.
low density housing and sprawl.
Okay, so, and we had public comment on that this evening, I think. So the tan, very low density residential is what you're suggesting we try and change.
Ideally, I'd like to change to open space. I think that from a housing perspective, you'd need to add another rail crossing. The bridge is the only way into town. I think a lot of housing there could be contraindicated.
Matthew, as far as infrastructure, if they were to develop, and this was the question I think earlier, would they tie into, is there infrastructure that goes all the way out there because of the hospital?
There is water and sewer infrastructure to the hospital right now. They would have to connect to that. They would probably have to loop the system. Obviously, they would have to put adequate road access into the property as well.
Okay. Okay, well, Taya, what do you want to do?
I'm going to make a motion to change it from low density to open space.
I'll second that.
Any discussion, board?
I have a question.
Sure thing.
When you say park, when you say open, you mean park and open space? Okay, and then what is the difference between park and open and natural area? I don't remember the difference on these.
It's a great question, Melissa.
I wonder, well, Matthew, maybe do you want to hop in?
Give me 1 second here and I can pull up the definitions.
Yeah,
Thank you. It's been a little while.
yeah.
At some point, I remember that we also talked about flooding that happened in that area. I don't remember in what context we were talking about, but
There was a story from a public comment about people taking the boat, a dinghy or something across that property. I feel like I remember that. Oh, here it is. Yeah.
So park and open means it could be developed for recreation or it could be ag.
So it looks
So
like
there's-
natural,
Sorry, that Matthew, that was for Matthew.
two different categories: open space, natural areas / open space, and parks and recreation. I think open space was what was in the motion, which would be the first definition there, including undeveloped lands, trails, water areas, and environmentally sensitive areas. As opposed to parks and recreation, which is playing fields, playgrounds, community centers, and other appropriate recreational uses.
So can you explain then on the key for the map, there's a park and open. Are they talking about open or are they talking about parks? Because the key for our map shows park and open together instead of separate.
They
So
are
it's-
talking
I'm so
about
confused.
parks.
This key is confusing as I'm looking at this now. So park and open space, under that is included natural areas.
Is that possibly a typo, Matthew, on the key? Should it be natural areas / open and then park and rec?
It should be natural areas / open and then just parks and rec.
But then you should have pastoral and open space because you have that as a definition as a third category. And there isn't a third one on here.
Not utilized within the city, so it's not on the key. It's only in the E ETJ.
I think we came up with that for the ETJ map.
Oh, yeah, right.
Okay, so you can take that, you can handle that typo then, Matthew, on page 112. So Melissa.
Okay, so I want to just make sure I'm understanding. So the light green is natural open space, which means not developed except for maybe some trails. Dark green is parks and recs. So that could be like ball fields, soccer fields, some sort of community buildings that are related to recreation. And the third, okay, so Matthew's nodding that both those things are correct. So now we're talking about natural areas to the like southeast of the river on between Livingston and the interstate. And then we're talking about adjacent to the river, north of the highways, recreation area, except for the motion and the second that was just made would change all of the dark green and the light tan to natural open space. So it would just be for trails or undeveloped.
I think,
Is
Melissa,
that, is that
yeah,
correct?
I think in this map, it might be misleading, and Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the green in this map along the river there is the floodplain.
Can you pull it back up, Matthew, the map? Thanks, Matthew. This is a lot of flipping through giant documents digitally. Okay, so Matthew, is that the floodplain or is that a parks and recreation designation adjacent to the river?
There is floodplain there, but that is not what this map is showing. And it's not, the map is not consistent exactly where the floodplain is.
Okay, so Taya, your motion was to change that dark green and the light tan all to natural and open, which would mean it's undeveloped with the exception for trails. Is that correct?
My motion was just changing the low density housing area to open space.
And then,
Is that the light tan? Sorry.
That's the light.
so the light tan would become light green and then the dark green would stay dark green, which means.
Per Taya's motion, but I think we do need to make either an amendment or another motion to change that dark green to the light green, because I think that's what the map intended, and I think that's what we all intended to, but
Okay.
I think that's a mistake.
I think an amendment would be appropriate.
Yeah.
Well,
And really quickly before we, do you mind if I continue just one more discussion?
Well,
about
can
that?
I keep the floor just till I'm done?
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. So before any amendments made, I just want to point out I don't know if Matthew can scroll the map just a little bit so we can see between the two highways, between, okay, right there, perfect. That dark green rec land, Parks and Rec extends. Okay, that's where the trails are, right? That's Meyer River Trail and the O Street Connector. No, not the O Street Connector Trail, whatever Alpenglow, whatever the trail is between the hospital. Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Jesse. I'm done.
Okay. And I guess I just want to make sure that so on the opposite side, on the west side of the river, where it's like kind of right up against the sewage treatment plant there, the water treatment plant. That is, I think there is some discussion about, keeping that, we want to keep that park and rec. And you're just talking about the other side of the river where the Heart Ranch is.
I didn't understand it to be that. I thought that the original motion was the light tan was to be put into natural area and open space.
Yep,
That's
that
what
was
the
the original motion. I just
original
want
motion. That's all, just that
Okay.
deal with that original motion. Then you
Now
can
we
deal
can
with
do
the
an
amendment.
Yeah, now we can deal with an amendment.
Or we could just vote on that and then vote on other motions if we want to tweak it.
Yeah, let's do that.
Wait,
Not sure we have a second to the original motion, but I may be incorrect on that.
you had Tori.
I seconded it.
Yeah, I think Tori seconded it.
Okay, so the motion on the table is changing the very low density residential, the tan, to open and natural. Taya made the motion, Tori made the second. Anybody want to talk about that anymore before we vote?
This is Shannon, Madam Chair. May I ask what's bringing this up? Is it Frank Schroeder and Ken Cochran's public comment? Because I don't remember having that much discussion about this annex parcel the first go around. So are we, is this solely driven by the comments earlier in tonight's meeting, or was this something that we should have discussed in more detail when we went through this section?
Shannon, I'll respond. I actually had written this down earlier before the comments tonight. It really was as
Getting a lot of
Taya, you're
feedback.
muted.
Taya, you're muted.
Sorry.
responding to Shannon. I had this written down before the comments tonight. It was more so as the agenda item was, as one of the agenda items was the future land use map, and going back and reflecting, and after having gone through the whole growth policy and those themes that emerged, and looking back through the growth policy, that's what inspired this motion. I do feel like if it had been more top of mind in our previous discussion, I would have brought it up then.
Thank you. So I guess my comment is at some point, a decision was made to bring 350 plus acres into the city. And I guess I'm of the opinion that
Oh, Shannon, you froze. Is he frozen to you guys too?
Yeah.
Just about to hear his opinion. Okay. Oh,
Maybe
shoot.
he'll unfreeze. I think he's still frozen.
He is still frozen. Oh. Shoot. Well, maybe we should just go ahead and vote. Well, shoot.
Can't
I
vote
wonder
until-
if he can call in, or
Can you clarify what the motion was?
yes. The motion was to change the very low density residential tan area on this map to natural and open, light green. That's the motion on the table. Taya made the motion and Tori seconded.
Is
think-
it possible and legal, Matthew, for you to reach out to Shannon,
I think he's trying to get
as a
back on.
staff person? Just because this
Yeah.
happens in commission meetings?
I am working on it.
Okay,
Our VPN just died, so I think that might be part of it. Let me pop out a screen share quickly here.
Oh, here he is. Let him in. Here he comes. Shannon, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm not sure really what happened there. I apologize if it was on, it had to have been on my end, but I'm not sure where I cut off with my
We were
comment.
just about to hear your opinion. You said it was my opinion that, and then you
Well,
froze.
that proper, there was a decision made in the past to annex that acreage of property into the city. And I doubt it was done under the pretext of it being open space and parks and recreation type land. So I guess I feel like it should be developed to some capacity. I'm not, from what we've been hearing, low density probably is not the solution, but maybe we should be looking at a higher density residential versus low for the portion we're talking about.
I have a question. How many years will this future land use map kind of be as this map? As long as the growth policy is in effect?
5 years, I think.
So
We
5
have-
years?
Well, we are to review it again in 5 years. We can amend it, or we can recommend to amend it at any time to the commission. But I believe we are required to review in 5 years.
It's sort of a, if I may, it's sort of a 15-year vision though too. So it's a longer term.
Mhm.
If I may make a comment, I kind of agree with Shannon a little bit. However, on the flip side, I think if we as a community can't coalesce around more access to the north side of getting across a railroad track where we have a major population base today, I'm not sure I'm willing to go through I don't know if the city is willing to go through the discussions about putting another crossing of a railroad track to develop a multi-acre new subdivision development, which would probably be required if that really does get developed down there, unless people are happy to go. I don't know how they would get there, to tell you the truth. But so looks like Matthew's got a comment. Go ahead, Matthew.
I just said, so if the property were to be developed by a private developer, they would be required to put in the infrastructure. So it would not be the city putting it in
Okay.
overpass there.
Thank you.
But would they be required to put in a full legal railroad crossing?
Yeah, they would have to have full legal access to their property, including for emergency services. So basically unimpeded legal access to the property. You have to be able to get fire trucks and ambulances in there at all times. So they would have to put some sort of access across the tracks, probably a couple of accesses or potentially an access running all the way to 89.
Well, and isn't there currently an access that goes across the railroad track? Because there used to be a sawmill in that area. So there is a railroad crossing, or I mean, there is a road that crosses a railroad track in that area, if I'm not mistaken.
It's not high density though. That's
No,
Yep.
no.
yeah.
And there's no arms or anything like that.
Okay, any more discussion before we vote on yeah, go ahead.
Yep, I got a question. So was this determined by one of the follow-up surveys that Burton did way early on? Is that how they came up with very low density? If you don't know, that's okay, Matthew.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if it was that specifically addressed. My guess is it's a combination of the surveys, the existing approval, and potential future land use on the property based on the environmental constraints.
Thanks. I hear, yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. Thank you. I hear what you're saying, Shannon, about the historical opinions about that property from the people who wanted it developed and how it originally came into town. And I hear what you're saying. Also, Taya, about people don't want this like discontiguous development in neighborhoods that are spread out away from town. That much is very clear from our meetings. So I appreciate you noticing this.
You know, I might also just add, I do recall, and I think it's a strategy in our growth policy, or I know we discussed it, was the de-annexation of certain properties. And this might be, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, this might be an example of one of those properties we would have considered. So I don't know if that's, I don't know why I remember that or think I heard that or we talked about it. Yeah, okay. Tori, did you have something you wanted to throw in there?
Well, just when we were having those discussions about annexation, and also we were reminded by Friends of Park County folks that there's no zoning in the county. So if we were to de-annex it, that would basically eliminate the city's ability to regulate land use there. So honestly, as a planner, I'm glad that that's currently within the city's boundaries, because the city has the power to regulate that land use. So, and I guess I've been kind of holding off on talking because I'm feeling, I appreciate what Shannon said. And when it comes to the transportation impacts of developing that land over there, in some ways, I think when it comes to congestion and safety, it might be better than you. I mean, one of the things that we have to consider is that there's latent development pressure in Livingston, and what we're trying to do is guide that to the places that we think it is best suited for that development. And when I look at this map, I think that the places that it might happen would be the area in question, the beige area, the north side, going out into the prairie on the north side, and then along 89 in the southwest part of the city. And so it's really which of those areas do we feel is going to cause the least amount of harm if more development goes into those areas. I think that because that land has not been molested by roads yet, that is a great place to keep open. There are areas that are currently being developed that have already been started to be torn up, and none of us like to see that either, but that's maybe a better place for that latent development pressure to go than a place that hasn't yet seen a bulldozer. So that's just my thinking on all that.
Okay, any more comments, board, before we, yep, Shannon?
I mean, I think this is a great discussion, and it's going to be interesting to see how the vote turns out. But, you know, I'm an optimistic, forward-thinking person. I have to be in my position. And, you know, I feel like if we really look at and take the recommendations in this growth policy and we act on some of these in the short term, I do feel that residential development in that area can be done in a way that actually complies with the growth policy and our residents and county residents' desires. And that's, I'll yield it at that.
Okay, thanks, Shannon. Anybody else before we vote? Okay, we're voting. Oh, Brian.
So do you want to restate the motion?
Sure. We are voting to change the very low density residential section in PAN to natural and open. Page 112, exhibit 11.1.
Clarify that that is only for the Yellowstone Preserve property.
Correct, thank you. Yes, only for the Yellowstone Preserve property. Let's vote. Brian,
A conflicted 4.
Shannon,
No.
Tori,
Or
Taya,
4.
Melissa,
Or
Stacy,
4.
and I'm also 4. Okay, that motion passes. What was there a discussion around what we wanted to do with the park and rec section of that too?
I have a question for the key. Do we need to vote on fixing that key, or can you just fix it?
Matthew
Okay,
said he
thanks.
just fixed it, yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else on this board?
we had discussed changing Parks and Rec to natural area. I
Mhm.
believe. I'm curious though to hear the board's thoughts on whether or not having some area north of I-90 remain Parks and Rec, because there's already the park next to the hospital, and maybe having, I mean, I don't know how pedestrians could safely cross 90 there and whether that's feasible. And also, I know we're not doing zoning, so by changing it to natural area, we're not necessarily excluding the use of that land for a park. But anyway, I'm wondering if anyone has strong feelings about keeping some of that north of I-90, maybe the part that's contiguous to the existing city park as Parks and Rec, and then the remaining part to the east as natural area.
You know, I think a lot of people fish, they park right there, right before the bridge, and they fish right along that, well, the river. I mean, people park there all the time and walk down there. So it's currently sort of
Illegally, I
being,
might add.
what's that?
I said
Illegally?
illegally, I might
Yeah.
add.
Well, and then across the river, there are a number of people sort of, you know, unfortunately, I believe there are a number of people sort of camped out right behind the sewage treatment plant too, in this, but that's across the river. And this is the flood. I mean, even though this isn't representative of the floodplain, it is this particular map. It is in the floodplain, so it would be, you know, building a structure there, I assume would probably not happen. However, trails might not be the worst idea. I don't know. Although I do recall in a comment at some point that somebody had mentioned trails are just as bad as developing structures, because you're still altering the natural landscape. Food for thought. Does anybody want to make a motion around that or chat about it anymore? Are we comfortable leaving it Park and Rec? Brian has a thumbs up. I'm not hearing any motions on it.
I don't think that at this point, at least it's preserving it as parks and recreational. But I do think that it does have some problems with the water in flood time. So, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay,
So
I'm not hearing, oh, I'm sorry.
just to be clear, no one wants to change the Park and Rec to low density residential. Just a bad joke. We can.
I was like, that was weird. Where did that
That
come
was weird. Out of left field.
All right, I'm not
Is that a
hearing
motion?
anything on this. I'm not hearing anything here. Anybody else want to talk about anything with the future, with the recommended future land use map?
I have one.
Okay,
So on back over by PFL, there's a wetland area, but it's not on this map anywhere. And I was just wondering if it should be, because my understanding is you can't develop on wetland area. And Matthew, is it a significant chunk of land there?
So you can develop on wetland area. You have to get 310 permits from the federal government to do so, but it is possible. You basically have to do mitigation, which is obviously often improving or replacing wetlands elsewhere. It is not a significant area. There is a bit of wetland. I believe there is a wetland map included elsewhere in the growth policy.
Okay, couldn't really find it. Okay,
And I think the case is too, it's not within city limits currently, like that map reflects. It might be when we were doing the ETJ, I think we had that covered in there, if I remember.
okay. I had one other then. When we discussed and again, this might be in the wrong time, so tell me if I'm in the wrong place, but to have the median density of the O Street to East Park, you know, that area that we had for migration purposes. We had talked about it going the furthest out triangle to the east, but it didn't get changed on the map, or we didn't include it in there. So Matthew, is that needing a motion now to include that from, what did I write down? I think it from South O to East Park Street to the city boundary. And I know this butts up against the land that's being talked about for annexation. So I didn't know whether we would, or if there was a way to include that if that is annexed in or not. So I didn't know the answer to that. Do you, Matthew, have an answer on that?
We didn't talk about it originally, so we would need a motion. I don't think we should include the annexation at this time, just because we could perpetually update the map with all the annexations, and we are working on a limited time frame. The area you mentioned, I would just note that along between Park and Calendar is commercial. I would recommend that if you are going to make a motion to change it to medium density residential, it does end at Calendar rather than Park there.
So, okay, so go up to the commercial area, not to Park Street because of that. Okay, I'll make a motion to add medium density residential from South O to up to the commercial district to the north and over to whatever the last street is, the city boundary. And I don't know if it's Q or something like that. Do you need more than that, Matthew?
You're including the sort of small triangle portion at the end there as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to just finish that area out.
Let me pull that up just so everyone can understand.
thank
Okay.
you.
And while he's doing that, I think I'll agree with Matthew. I'm not sure why we're going after these things that haven't been annexed yet. I mean, I understand that there's a forward-looking document, but
Yeah.
I don't think we should be tackling this personally.
And the part that I'm talking about is not in the annexed land. That was a question afterwards because it happens to be next to it. So this was just the furthest corner, existing corner.
So Stacy, currently it's listed as high density
Right.
and you want to change this little bit.
To medium density because of the wildlife that goes through there,
Okay.
right next to the river. It's the same philosophy that Melissa spoke about on Loch Leven Drive. And that's all. That's the rationale. And Melissa maybe has some other comments to make on that.
Okay, Stacy made a motion. Does anybody want to second that?
This is Tay, I'll second that.
Okay, any comments? Okay, let's vote. Brian,
Sorry, I'm looking at it and looking what else we have down the river. Can I make a comment first, I guess?
yeah,
Are we that section that's right along the river there? I'm sorry, I'm having a look at the bigger map here.
it's
Are
already, that one's already developed with some housing. It's right across the street from the dog park. That little chunk. And
Yeah, but are we being inconsistent with the rest of what we said was happening along the river, though?
well, on the west side of town, we did change that little bit from, was it 9th Street all the way over into like the Loch Leven Drive. And then we did change this little chunk. So we did, although there's that little teeny bit, I guess, is that 9th Street? That little, I'm looking west.
No, what's on the screen right now is east.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking on my own map. You were just asking if we were being inconsistent. So we did change that down there. And we tried to stay, we tried to stay away from high density along the river, although we didn't do it everywhere.
Right, so I'm wondering why we're backtracking on that. I thought we wanted to keep low density at least on that. Now, maybe we could do medium if you go back to the triangle drawing, if it's still there, but maybe if we did kept that right along the river low density and then everything back from that, then that might be okay. But I think we should try to keep right along the river low density as much as we can. I think we talked quite a bit about that earlier on, so I don't understand why we're
But
backtracking.
Brian, right now it's at high density. There is no low density along the river. It's all high density.
The orange is high density.
So we're not backtracking.
Stacy's
So
just, yeah, sorry.
okay, so, and I agree that there's other places along the river or Fleshman Creek that could also equally be medium density.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about Fleshman Creek. I was talking about the Yellowstone. I thought that's why we made the changes upstream to yellow, because we didn't want the higher density on the river. So that that channel there, that on the upper side of the island there. There you go.
Oh, I'd have to look it up.
We pushed to make that keep that all lower density. So
just to clarify, at the first meeting we talked about this, the area down here around Loch Leven, that's I'm not on draw, but basically this area down here is medium density. What Stacy is proposing is consistent with that and this area up here along Fleshman Creek, which is also shown as medium density.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Anybody else before we vote? Okay. Let's vote. Brian,
4.
Shannon? Oh, you just muted yourself, Shannon.
I'll do 4.
Okay. Tori,
I'm against.
Taya,
4.
Melissa,
4.
Stacy?
4.
Ugh. Okay, I'll be 4 also. Okay, that one passes. Anything else, Stacy?
No, I think I'll just leave the rest alone. Would it be considered later or something if we talked about the area that, since we talked about the central business district, that would come up later if we wanted to?
If we already voted on that section, yep, you'll have to bring it up at the very last.
I have no further questions.
Okay,
that.
thank you. Anybody else want to do anything with this section? Okay, hearing none, we're closing this agenda section. The time of the tone is 7 o'clock. Do we need a break or do we want to keep going? You guys want 5 minutes? Or do you want to tackle one more? Yes, 5 minutes. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break. I have exactly 7 o'clock. We will see you all back here at 7:05. All right, 7:05. Welcome back. 5 minutes goes fast. All right, so we are now moving on to the third item on the agenda, the Appendix A, the ETJ, Table 3.1, the implementation matrix. So we're going to go ahead and open that up to public comment.
Yes,
Oh,
just quickly
Matthew.
before we do that,
Yes.
just a note, and I should have noted this earlier. Just like chapter 12, the reopening of this table is not a way to backdoor into changing the strategy. So we are specifically looking at the table and its timeline, not the actual language of the strategies included in the table as they are from other chapters. They are just being basically re-put in this place to put them in the table.
Thank you for that reminder, Matthew. Okay, we're going to open it up to public comment. Stacy is back. Stacy, are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay, please don't forget to state your, oh, Melissa, yeah.
Can you just clarify the page numbers that we're opening, please?
It'll be in your memo, and it starts on page 45, and it goes to page 49. So it's just the implementation matrix for the ETJ, which is Appendix A. Okay. And as Matthew said, we're looking at strictly the time frames, I believe. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open it up to public comment. You have 3 minutes. Please don't forget to state your name and your address, and I will let you know when we're getting close. Okay, Michelle Ubaragua, I see your hand is up.
Okay, I'm going to be quick and short because I hope this is the right place to comment. But just want to say that, you know, as far as implementation, ETJ, just emphasize the coordination between the city county and getting the city county planning board up as soon as possible so that we can regulate in the ETJ. And then the other point that I want to make is just that the importance of the growth policy and the regulations that follow. And I know that we have some other documents, including the North Side Transportation Plan and the you know, kind of pile of planning documents. And I you know, the North Side Transportation Plan, to the extent that it impacts this part of the growth policy and the rest of the growth policy, you know, wasn't supported by public comment. And I want to make sure that the planning board, I think it would be a good opportunity for you all to make a recommendation to the city commission that the growth policy supersedes any parts of the North Side Transportation Plan. Implement this part or the entire document. So that I might have slipped in that comment in the wrong part here, but I wanted to make sure and say it. So thank you.
Sure thing. It looks so nice outside, doesn't it?
I'm sorry. I want you to see my face, but I'm multitasking with kiddos.
I get it. No, it's all good.
Yeah,
It looks beautiful out there. I'm glad you're out there. Okay, thanks for your comment. Is there any other public comment specifically on the implementation matrix table 3.1? Second call for public comment, and if you can't raise your hand, you can turn your camera on or your microphone on. Okay, last call, public comment. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close public comment. Planning board, does anybody want to get started? I do have one, but I will wait. Okay, I'm going to go. I am going to make a motion on page 46, strategy 3.1.4, explore adopting city zoning as allowed by state statute. Instead of having that 1 to 5 years, I make the motion that we change that to 1 to 2 years. And if anybody would like a second, please let me know.
Will you bring us all to where you are one more time?
No problem. Page 46, and this is in the memo, I assume it's in this, the same as the draft. It is strategy 3.1.4. And it says explore adopting city zoning as allowed by state statute. And my recommendation is to move that to the more immediate instead of immediate and near term. So this is sort of following the zoning concerns and trying to move that time frame up to be more immediate.
I'll second that.
Any discussion around that, board?
Did we
Okay.
already,
Oh.
I have a question. Didn't we? I feel like we discussed this already. Was that just not in the ETJ, but it was in a strategy, the previous
Yes.
sections of strategy?
Yeah, so Melissa, you know where it was, and so I was the one who made the motion last time to revisit this because I could not remember. It came from public comment, and it was the end of the meeting, and I couldn't remember where it came from. But in the chapter 12 implementation, there are about 4 different strategies that all address zoning and also implementing smart growth strategies. But that is in a different chapter, and we did not put that on tonight's agenda. So this, and it has the same thing. So they are in there, and the public comment said, please make it more immediate, 1 to 2 years rather than 1 to 5, 1 to 2, 3 to 5. And so for this agenda item, this is the strategy I'm suggesting that we change.
Okay, I'm
The
just
implementation.
When we use the word code in city, I'm looking at you, Matthew. We're including zoning. Okay, the strategic plan for the city of Livingston currently shows a current or rewrite current code for 2022. So this seems consistent is what I'm saying, what you're suggesting with what we already have approved with the strategic plan. I'm looking for you, Jesse. There you are. Okay. It's like looking through all the squares. So I'm just confirming as I'm looking at the strategic plan online that matches also. Thank you.
Sure thing. Any other discussion on this one? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Brian,
Or
Shannon,
Or
Tori,
Or
Taya,
4.
Melissa,
Or
Stacy,
Or
and I'm also 4. Okay, that one passes, and that's the only one I had.
I have one.
Okay, Stacy, what do you got?
I believe this is just to match the one we did in the city, and that is to add a strategy to the first section. To add the new
Stacy,
strategy.
We're not adding any strategies. We're only changing
Oh,
the
that's right.
time frame. Sorry.
That's okay. I was just trying to add the city planning component to match what we did with the city. So that was all.
Okay.
I can always put that in later.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything they want to do with this time frame section? All right. On to the last agenda item. Recommendation on the growth policy to the city commission. Oh my gosh, this is it. Okay, so we're going to open this up to public comment.
Jesse, can I cover a few things before we go
Oh
through
yes,
public
please
comment?
do. Yes, thank you. Please do, Matthew.
So I'm just going to quickly run through a few things in the staff report. The first thing I want to talk about is just how much public comment we've gotten. We had a survey with almost 1,200 responses. We've received hundreds of pieces of public comment after that. I think it's been a very successful public input process, and I want to thank the public for being so involved. We've had Zoom meetings that have had 65 people in them for 4 hours. So that's been very impressive, and I'm very grateful for that. And because of that, I think what you have recommended is doing an excellent job of representing what the community wants and what the community needs. Just to cover a few state statutory items with this recommendation, you are required as a planning board to make a recommendation to the City Commission on state statute. This meeting had to be noticed. That has all been completed. There is a list of items that must be included in the growth policy under state statute. I have no concerns that we meet those, that list. This is a huge growth policy. And the final thing is you have 3 options tonight on what you can do for this recommendation, which is recommend the proposed growth policy to the City Commission, recommend that the growth policy not be adopted, or recommend that the governing body take some other action. I have prepared a draft resolution, which was attached to the staff report, assuming you will take action 1, including in that resolution were the changes that were made tonight. So that would include recommending approval and any changes that were made at this meeting. And just for your information and for the public's information, the City Commission is required to hold 2 meetings for this. 1 meeting to adopt a resolution of intention that will likely happen May 18th at this point, and then a final resolution of adoption, which if the City Commission decides to do it in those 2 meetings, would be scheduled for June 15th. As a staff, as I already noted, I do believe that you all have done an excellent job taking into consideration all of the public comment. We've had a lot of public comments. I feel after this very extensive process that you are representing the desires and the needs of the community in the growth policy, and it gives staff a strong foundation to move forward with planning items and other items from the city, and it gives the City Commission a good foundation to start looking at updating the strategic plan. So the staff does recommend that you take that option 1 and recommend adoption to the City Commission. And that is all I have. I will answer any questions, or you're welcome to open it to public comment.
Do you have any questions for Michael, board, before we open it up to public comment? Excuse me. Okay, hearing none, we will go ahead and open it up to public comment. Thank you, Matthew. All right. We will open it up to public comment. If I can get my timer to work. If you have a comment, please raise your hand. Second call for public comment. Third call, public comment. Okay, public comment is closed. Planning board. Any thoughts? Yes, Brian.
This is Brian. I'll echo about 99.9%, maybe 100% what Matthew said. I can't think where I deviate. I think public input has been extensive. I think it's been great. I think obviously we're not going to make everybody happy. I think we've done a good job of capturing the major themes and trying to make sure the objectives and the strategy fit around those themes. And I feel incredibly comfortable with the document. I'm very proud of the achievement. I think we've done a fantastic job. So I am definitely going to proceed. Definitely recommend we proceed. I'm not going to make a motion yet, but we'll let other people talk. But I'm definitely going to recommend that we proceed with approving this document. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Anybody else want to comment? Melissa?
Yeah, there's just a couple things that, like, when I went back through the document, there's just a couple things that stick out to me that I don't think what we did matched what our intent was. I think, is this the time to bring it up? All right.
Yep.
So one of them is that Loch Leven area. We talked about how we didn't want to go increase the density because there is it's a sensitive area, I think, where we actually get like breeding moose in that part of town, which is not typical. It's just like a unique habitat, that part of town. And I think every year there's actually moose with like moose calves in that area, but we did increase the density. When you go back and look at the zoning, it's actually low density right there. And we increased it to medium. And so I'm really concerned about just that one little chunk of town because it is sensitive, and breeding moose are not something I necessarily want to impact. And they're also not something I really want higher density around. They're dangerous. So that's one thing that really bothers me that we did. I don't think we meant to change it, and we did change it. It's actually low. So can I like make a motion or, okay. I want to make the motion that for that, just that tiny chunk of the map that's low dense, and that's the only part, right, Matthew, that currently in the current zoning map is low density. Do you have it pulled up?
There's a couple other places, some
And-
areas on, I assume you're talking about the existing zoning, not the future land use map.
Yeah, I'm talking about
There's-
existing zoning.
There's a few places up by Sun Avenue. There's a small portion of R1, and on the west side of Park, sort of near where the church is, there is also a small area of R1 that under the current zoning.
Okay, I just mean around Loch Leven. That's the only one, because that's the one that we talked about. We didn't talk about the importance of low density in those other areas. So that's like my only thing with that part, is just because it's a critical wildlife habitat right now.
So Melissa, I'm looking at the zoning map exhibit 3.1. Is that what you're basing this off of?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. Are you talking about a map that's in the growth policy, this draft
Right.
growth policy?
Right.
No, I'm looking at the future land use map.
Okay.
Page 112, Stacy.
Yeah.
And I'm comparing it to like my memory of our current zoning.
Well, that's what I'm looking at. So comparing what we did there with the zoning district map,
I
or are
don't
you
know.
the city's
Where's,
map?
I'm talking about the zoning map that's on the website. That's the current City of Livingston zoning map, has that however many half blocks or whatever. Those aren't even real blocks, like those dead end streets in that area. Can you just pull it up, Matthew? Thanks,
I mean,
that's easier than me.
Page 23.
No, I'm not comparing it to 23. I'm on page 112 and that's
Right.
it. That's it. So I'm talking about, so some of it, okay, so highway commercial, we're maintaining that as community commercial. And then that first strip by Meadowlark, we're proposing that goes to R3. And then that section between Robin and Meadowlark, we're going from low density to R3. And then I'm talking about, okay, and then we have between Bluebird and Robin going up to, from low density to medium density. What I would propose is that strip that is on Loch Leven to the southeast of Loch Leven, and that small strip on the adjacent side, so like just both sides of the street on Loch Leven. Can you like put your cursor over the part I'm talking about? I propose we keep that R1 and then the rest can go as we have it already on this future land use map.
You mean very low density residential instead of R1? Or, because we're talking about,
Yeah, is very low density equal R1?
I would just caution about continually comparing the future land use map to the zoning. They are not consistent, and they're not designed to be consistent.
Okay, so can you just tell me your feedback on what I'm saying based on the fact that these are
Low
not
density
equivalent?
would, I think, achieve the intent you are looking for.
Okay, thanks, Matthew. So we don't have any low density on here already. I would just keep that very small strip because that is the part adjacent to where I think we currently have breeding moose right next to Livingston. And I know that's minor, but that's the thing that's keeping me up at night. And I would say the rest of it that we already changed, I would leave it alone and have it match this. So I'm talking about like the tiniest strip. Can you go to the yellow, this map and show the part that I am proposing we leave at R1 or at low density, I mean, sorry. Thanks for doing this, Matthew.
So basically, you're just saying you want to keep both sides of Loch Leven Drive. You want to keep them as low density instead of medium density.
Yeah, that's just like the interface of where the moose meet Livingston. And so I think to keep conflict low, I would keep it how it is because it's working right now for the moose and I wouldn't invite conflict there since it currently is fine.
Okay, was there?
So-
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Did
You
you
want
make
a motion?
Yeah,
No,
go
I'll
for
make a
it.
motion. That part that Matthew just circled, we retain as low density.
Moose are my favorite animal. I will second that.
They're mine too, actually.
Jesse, may I ask a procedural question, please?
Sure.
This is probably more for Matthew. So now at this stage of where we are in the process, any proposed changes that we make, can we make those in the document? Or are we making these as recommendations to the commission to change at this point?
Technically, every single change you've made so far has just been a recommendation, and we've been putting it in the document as recommended changes. That will continue. So you'll need a motion when we finish with all of this to basically say, if you do move to take the approval route, we move to recommend approval to the county commission or the city commission with all recommended changes at this meeting. But we will provide the city with the document with all the changes that you've recommended.
Thank you.
Okay, does anybody want to have any more discussion around this? We do have a motion and a second. Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Brian?
For.
Shannon?
No.
Tori?
Or
Taya?
Or
Melissa?
For
Stacy?
Or
And I'm for. Okay, that motion passes.
the next thing that I think we all were in somewhat of agreement, but then we didn't do the motion to match the conversation was the central business district. We spent a lot of time on that. Do you mind pulling it up, Matthew? And so I don't want to make a motion until I hear what people have to say. We talked about expanding the central business district along Park Street, but then we didn't vote on it and we didn't make a motion. So I'm not talking about expanding it in the middle of town. I'm talking about, we talked about the community commercial being central business district along Park. Does anybody have thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, I thought, Melissa, the discussion and what we did do and vote on instead of expanding the central business district along Park was to create it as community commercial. I thought that was sort of what we agreed upon.
Was it?
and it's what's reflected here. That's what I recall.
Okay.
Does anybody else recall something different? I do distinctly remember us having that conversation and deciding to change I don't know what it was prior to being red, but changing that red on purpose.
What was it before it was community commercial? Do you remember?
That I can't remember. Was it just orange?
I think you actually have it backwards. The area through Central Business District was community commercial, somewhat consistent with the current designation of highway commercial in the zoning. What you all voted to do was extend the Central Business District to Park, replacing the community commercial along Park with Central Business District, and that did occur at the first meeting.
Okay. Those were some of the longest meetings that went very late. So does anybody else have anything they want to say about that? Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the next thing.
Well, and so at that time, we did decide to just keep it to this rectangle and not expand it along Park Street. Is that right? That was the discussion? No?
Expanded it to Park Street, but not beyond the bounds essentially of the current Central Business District.
Right.
That was shown.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything they want to say? Otherwise, I'm going to move on. Okay, moving on. I'm going to take it all the way to the acknowledgements page. So this is like inside the cover page. There's a couple things that are missing that I think need to, that belong. So it's this page.
Is that towards the end of the document or the beginning?
No, this is like the back of the cover.
Oh, the back of the cover.
Yep. I think that we should add all the planning board members that worked on this document from the beginning till today. I can't remember if Kate, Frank, and Scott all worked on this too, or if it was before the process because we talked about it so much, but I do think that the planning board members should be named. The other person that is painfully absent from this page is Matthew Menard. You're on there where? I didn't see you.
You're on the list of city staff.
Oh, you are. Well, maybe we should put you in bold then, since I put your name in bold. Are you blushing?
Put stars around it.
Definitely
I'm
don't
just
need my
kidding.
name in bold.
I'm sorry that I don't know. That's my bad. Okay, you're on there. I think that's good. I do think that we should be recognizing the planning board members because you all have done the heavy lifting for this document, and I would like to see, I just think it's important to recognize you all. Can you tell me, were Kate, Scott, and Frank working on this, or was it right before?
Depends on when you start the timeline for the planning board. I mean, so they were involved when this, well, wait a minute. Yes, Scott and Kate were.
They were on the committee to help choose the contractor.
Right, and they were in the initial listening sessions too. So they
Okay.
I have to say they were in the early stages. Yeah.
They were. Thank you, Brian. I needed that. Okay. So I want to make a motion to add the planning board and all the members who served on the planning board from the beginning when Kate and Scott and Frank O'Connell with the county, because I do remember he was on, and then everybody that's present right now. I want you all to be named. Is there a second?
I'll second it. Could we just do it by year? I mean, so it's just broken up.
I don't know if it matters. I mean, I don't know if it matters.
Okay, any conversation around that? Okay, let's vote. Brian?
4.
Shannon?
4.
Tori?
4.
Taya?
4.
Melissa?
4.
Stacy?
4.
And I am 4.
Thank you for voting yes for yourselves, because I think you all deserve to be recognized, because this is a massive list and this document's huge and it's going to be around for a long time, and you deserve credit for all the work that you did. So thank you. And I'm sorry, Matthew, I don't know what happened to my brain. Please forgive me.
It's all good, no worries.
It's just my subconscious saying you deserve a lot of credit because this is an insane amount of editing that you've been doing on behalf of all of Livingston. Thank you. The only other thing I have, I'll save for my comments. Otherwise, I just want to say, I think this is awesome. We have done, I think, an incredible job of disagreeing and coming to conclusions and moving things forward and having like really healthy, constructive, hard conversations with like high critical thinking and complete respect and collaboration. Like I could not be happier seeing all of you and having these hard conversations with you. It's never gotten nasty or ugly. Like I feel like I really appreciate like this space that we're in together and that we can disagree and still keep moving forward. Thank you. It's a big deal.
Thanks, Melissa. Okay, anybody else?
I have one question. Since Melissa brought up the central business district, is this the place where we were saying that you could, like I could talk about the ETJ City County Planning Board or not? That is where?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would just like to make a motion to make strategy 3.1 point, I don't know, 4, I think is what it was, to the timeline, or no, to it so that it this minute I gotta find.
Are you in chapter 12, Stacy, the implementation matrix for the growth policy or the ETJ?
I'm in the ETJ because I'm just trying to have the ETJ match what we did in the other.
Okay. So that should be in your memo. And that's the one we voted on tonight, right? Or that's the one we changed tonight, on page 46, 3.1.4.
No, this is in the ETJs. I guess it would be considered in the, hang on a second. I have too many pieces of paper.
I think she's talking about goal 3 of the ETJ, which is on ETJ page 40, 3.1.4, the actual strategy itself, not the implementation table.
Oh,
Right. So I just wanted to make a motion to add strategy 1.1.4, consider formation of a city county planning board. That's all.
Say it one more time, Stacy, just so I can write it down. Consider
Formation of a city county planning board.
Okay, thank you. And that would be strategy
1.1.4.
Okay, perfect. Okay, anybody want to second that one?
I'll second that.
Taya seconds. Any discussion on that one? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Brian,
4, sorry.
no worries. Shannon,
4.
Tori,
Or
Taya,
4.
Melissa,
4.
Stacy,
4.
and I am also 4. Okay, motion passes. Did you have another one, Stacy?
Nope, that was it.
Anybody else have another one? Oh my goodness, what do we want to do? All right, well.
Dance. We want to dance.
So I guess I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion then. And my motion is to recommend the proposed growth policy and any proposed ordinances and resolutions for its implementation to the governing bodies of the governmental units represented on the planning board. And FYI, I read that right out of the statute. Is that not what I'm supposed to?
We just make one modification to that. We don't have
Yeah.
any proposed ordinances right now, so can we
Oh.
just scratch that from
Of
the,
course. But everything else fits, correct? Okay. All right, do I need to read that again?
Oh, yeah, good.
Oh, I'll do it really quickly, Brian. Recommend the proposed growth policy and resolutions for its implementation to the governing bodies of the governmental units represented on the planning board.
This is Brian, I second it.
Okay,
make one clarifying point. Do we also want to recommend, included in that, the changes that were voted on this
wondered if I had to
evening?
say that, shoot. All right, I'm gonna say it all over again, and then you can tell me if you agree, Brian. I want to add to that motion, including the changes that were made this evening.
This is Brian, I second the modification to the original motion.
God, I tried so hard. Any discussion, board? Oh my gosh, let's vote. Ready? Brian,
4.
Shannon,
Yes.
Tori,
Or
Taya,
4.
Melissa,
4.
Stacy,
Or,
and I am 4. All right, motion passes and we have done it. Woo, 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 woo. Yay. Okay, good job. We're gonna finish up with board comments and we'll talk about next meeting. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong agenda. Okay. Are there administrative comments that need to come first or board comments first?
The agenda has board comments first, so let's do staff update after that.
Perfect. Board? Would anybody like to make a comment? Go ahead, Tori. Real quick, and then Melissa.
great. Just want to thank everyone again. First for including me on the board. I realized that having not been here for too long, that that maybe wasn't the easiest decision, but I think that we've had a great working relationship, and I've felt included and respected, and I appreciate it. So thanks to everyone for your hard work and for including me in this process. It's been really rewarding, and it's actually helped me to appreciate Livingston even more. So thank you.
We're so thankful that you're on the board. I'm so thankful. Okay, anybody else want to make a final comment? Melissa had one, go ahead.
Yeah, Tori, you're very brave to immediately get involved in local government after you move to a town. And it's a great way to show your commitment. So I applaud you for jumping right into the deep end of the pool right after you got here. Yes, so not to be the bearer of bad news, but things are happening at the state legislature as we speak that are going to make it harder for us to implement this plan before the commission can even adopt it. In fact, if you read the Bozeman Chronicle, there's something on the front page today that just removed a tool that Bozeman uses to get more affordable housing. So that's a thing that we need to be aware of. And I think that we, as a planning board, well, I mean, I, as a commissioner, am going to talk to the rest of the commission about this. I think we need to be aware of it because the next legislative session is not that far away. And I think we need to protect the tools that we need to implement the things that our community wants to see. And we're losing the tools at the state level right now, which is terrifying. So I just wanted to make you all aware of that and be really honest about my feelings about it, and also that I'm going to take it to the commission, but I would welcome a future conversation at this board too, if you all think that it's appropriate. I think there are some recommendations that we could also make.
Commissioner Newts, this is
Yeah.
Shannon. so I don't know all the details of what you're talking about, and I appreciate you bringing it up, but would the city becoming a charter form of government help us navigate through any of that, or is the state going to overrule some of the topics that?
Yeah. There's different zoning things, different zoning tools that used to be available. And they're just taking those away. Matthew probably could speak from, as a professional planner, what those are. If he's watching any of those things, I'll just stop talking, but I want to say, you know, it's not uncommon for like cities, like we did it, not this session, but the session before. Michael Cardus actually went on behalf of the city to, I don't know if lobby is the right word, but he went to testify on certain tools that the community was in favor of, and the commission voted for. I don't know if you remember that, Shannon, but it's a thing, and we might consider it for zoning and land use. But I'll stop so Matthew can speak.
Yeah, so I'll try to be relatively quick. So the big one that came out today, the governor signed into law that cities are no longer allowed to do what's called inclusionary zoning. Bozeman uses inclusionary zoning. Basically what it is when you do a development over a certain number of units, a certain percent of those units are required to be income restricted or in some way affordable. Bozeman also allows cash in lieu for that program. So basically what the state has done is preempted that zoning. So that zoning is no longer legal in the state of Montana. There's clearly been a push in this legislative session to take away some of the local control, especially when it has to do with things that's specifically Bozeman, Missoula, and in this case, Whitefish also has inclusionary zoning. So we've seen that pattern throughout the legislative session. This is really, I think, the first big one. I don't think there are too many big ones on the zoning side. There was one on the subdivision side where they changed the criteria for subdivision approval a little bit, so you can no longer deny a subdivision just based on prime soils being present. I don't think that's passed yet, but it looks like it probably will. And there's a few other things like that. There's a very concerning takings law, which the implications of aren't quite clear yet. I'm not sure that's going to go through, but it would potentially hamstring zoning throughout the state. And there were a few other things that got tabled that had to do with zoning, often targeting specific zoning actions by specific local governments that the state didn't feel were appropriate. But the one that got passed today does not allow us to do inclusionary zoning anymore, which is quite a zoning tool for affordable housing that's used throughout the country. And there's no way for us to get around that. It is a complete state preemption on that.
The other thing, Matthew, that stood out to me was some land designations for, and it might be more applicable to the county than the city, but agricultural lands is something that I noticed, because I know that came up at these meetings as well, like people wanting to preserve agricultural uses of their land. And I don't know if those kinds of things pass, what implications that will have for the ETJ. So I think that we're at risk. The Housing Coalition, I don't know what's happening at those meetings because I don't go, but they're actually working, if you remember, like how to address some of our housing needs. And I'm worried that some of the tools they might have considered they just lost. So anyway, not to be a Debbie Downer, but I think it's important to know what's happening in Helena will definitely impact how we can implement this. And I yield.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa, for bringing that up. Oh, sorry, Stacy, do you have some comments?
No, I was just gonna make my general board comment.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that for being the first time I've served on a planning board and being part of this type of group, it's been very rewarding and very educational. And I've appreciated all the time that we have spent in trying to make Livingston a better place. That's all.
Thanks, Stacy. Anybody else? Taya?
I also wanted to extend my thanks. Thank you for listening to input and comment from the county. It has been both an honor and a pleasure to be working with all of you, and I'm excited about the tone this sets for collaboration going forward.
Yeah, thanks, Taya. We're glad you're on board. Shannon.
All right. Well, as the senior member of this board, I want to wish Brian the best of luck in his future endeavors. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you, Brian. I know we haven't always agreed on everything, but we've kept it very professional and respectful, and you know, that carries on throughout the rest of the board members as well. And so you'll be sorely missed. Definitely love your input in these discussions, and definitely look forward to working with the rest of the board members, and hopefully we can find a replacement that's half as good as Brian. And just excited about the future, and hopefully the commission can accept this. And I do want everybody to know that it is a living document, and I think we've done a good job of doing this over a 2-year period, and really drawing the line on that. We have to just pick a moment in time and make it current, but knowing that we have, as a board, have the opportunity to provide additions, amendments to this document in the future as they become necessary. So, and I am looking forward to having maybe a bubbly beverage after this meeting to celebrate a lot of hard work and a document that we're all very proud of.
Thanks, Shannon. Thank you for those reminders too, that it's a living document. And thanks for being the senior member. And thank you for recognizing Brian. Brian, thanks for leading the charge on the chair position and setting such a good example. I was very nervous having to follow in your footsteps, but we made it through. And it's been an honor and a total privilege to work on this document. All those nights, those 4-hour meeting nights, and then I could not go to sleep for at least an hour after that. But they were totally worth it. And I just also just want to thank the public. Those comments were incredibly helpful and thoughtful, and came with a lot of expertise. And we couldn't have created this document without the community. And so thank you so much. Huge deal. I feel like we have accomplished a lot, and I could not be more proud of our board. So, and our town and our community, we rock, literally. Okay.
And I guess I would also just like to compliment Melissa and Shannon for representing the board, the planning board at the city commission meetings, and keeping them up to date so that they will recognize the work it took to get this completed.
Thanks, Stacy.
Thanks, Stacy. And Shannon, were you on the joint board when it was planning and zoning?
No, I was not. I actually, my addition to the board was a result of the separation of those.
So Shannon, I'm senior to you.
Okay.
Too soon, Shannon. Spoke too soon.
Too soon. Yeah, Shannon. Ouch. No, you're definitely the senior staff person though at these meetings.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I misspoke. I was, I just had a COVID shot the other day, and I'm still not clearing my second
Apology
one.
accepted. All is forgiven.
Fuzzy too.
Yeah. All right, Matthew, do you want to have,
I remember every hour of every planning board meeting and all of the hours that preceded you with that painful separation of those two boards. So it's been a long 2.5 years on planning boards. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Love this group. Matthew, do you have any administrative comments you want to make before we wrap this up?
Before we start with me, I saw Brian unmute, and I don't know if he wants to.
No, I'll shut up. Go ahead.
Again, I want to reiterate what you all said. Thanks to all of you. It has been many hours, many late nights, You have put in an extraordinary amount of work in reading all of the public comments. Thanks to the public for keeping us honest, so to speak, advocating for what they want to see, advocating for the community. All of that, I think it's an excellent document. Continue to do what you're doing when it gets to the commission. There will be another round of public comment when we get there. Board members, if you want to attend those commission meetings, that is always helpful to represent what you have done here. So thanks to all of you for that. Because it was mentioned, I am sitting in on the Housing Action Plan meetings that is ongoing. We still have a while to go yet on that process, but we are discussing tools to hopefully encourage more affordable housing within the city. The other plan that is being worked on right now is the Trails and Active Transportation Plan. We are right at the beginning of that process as well, but hopefully by fall we will have an excellent plan to guide us forward on trails and how to make the community more bike and pedestrian friendly. So those are exciting things happening in the planning realm. The other administrative thing, and we don't need to have a full discussion about this tonight, potentially it was brought up at the commission and I had actually talked to Jesse about it probably last week, was potentially not having a meeting next month to give you all a break. And I don't know how you all feel about that. Right now we have nothing on the agenda. There's nothing that's going to be required for that agenda. So it's a discussion we can have over email, but I don't know how you all feel about that. My recommendation is we take a month off, especially as the commissioners have a very, very, very full schedule with budgeting and all the other meetings that they do. So giving Commissioner Newts a little bit of a break might be nice for her.
Oh my gosh, Matthew, that's like the nicest thing anybody said to me in a long time. Thank you. And Shannon also wants to be included in having a break, I think.
Well, I would love the senior member of the planning board to make a motion about our May meeting so we can make it official tonight. Maybe we can garden that Wednesday night instead of being in a Zoom meeting.
You really know how to convince a senior member of the planning board with that
Mid-May.
gardening sweet talk. Yeah, I'll make a motion. We skip our May meeting and resume in June.
Is that seconded by Shannon?
But it should be seconded by the second most senior.
Everybody seconds.
Is Junior next, Shannon?
Let's
Are you
all
the
second
junior?
at the same time. I'll
Okay,
second.
yay, let's vote. Brian, or do you want to discuss it? Sorry. Okay,
Four.
good. Jory,
4.
Stacy,
4.
Taya,
4.
Shannon,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
and me, yes. Okay, no meeting in May, so we'll see each other in June. I actually hope we get to do a little social something towards the end of the summer. I mentioned that to Matthew. I thought it'd be really nice if we could, you know, try and get together at some point when COVID is allowing us to do so, and just celebrate together all of our achievements, not only us, but maybe the commissioners and the other advisory boards. I think that would be really nice. So I don't know if we can figure that out, but maybe we can. Okay, do we need to discuss anything else tonight?
Oh my gosh, it's like
Light out
and
Early.
quick before 8 o'clock comes. Call the meeting.
Okay, I'm gonna call it at 7:59 p.m. Thank you, public. Very cute. We really appreciate you all, and we'll see you guys when we see you guys in June, and at the commission meeting as well. Matthew told us the dates. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a
Thanks,
great
everybody.
evening.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Brian.
Bye.